I often think about this moment. It was roughly 16 years ago, and I was in my bedroom playing Assassin's Creed 2 for the first time. I'm roaming through Renaissance Italy, hearing strange rumblings about a prophecy and an apple, pieces of Eden as strange relics. This mystery drove me in. Then, hours later, after beating the Pope in a fistfight, I enter a strange temple. And in it, a hologram of the ancient Roman goddess Minerva looks directly at the camera and addresses her message about finding ancient temples to Desmond, not Ezio. I remember after finishing the game, I sat there and out for 10 minutes processing what I had just seen. This wasn't just a story about an ancient war between two orders. You were exploring these memories to figure out how to prevent a solar flare that would end the world. One that had already destroyed a prior civilization who are now communicating with you via messages left in time. This was a defining moment in my teens, and something that drew me into the franchise completely. I'll put a pin on that for now. The reason why will be clear later. Outer Wilds, a game I had just finished for the first time recently, sees you play as an alien exploring separate planets to figure out why you've been living in a time loop that always ends in a supernova. And you're exploring runes and older messages from an ancient civilization who tried to stop it, and you hope to finish what they started. Already here, we're seeing that the end goal of both these IPs are very similar. They're executed very differently and distinctly, but they both follow the same hook and attempt to ask similar philosophical questions. The one succeeded so well that it filled the hole I had in me for over a decade, while the other left lingering questions as it loses itself in its own loop. I'd like to explore why. Now, the two franchises couldn't be any more different from one another. Where Assassin's Creed is a swashbuckling open-world parkour historic fiction sci-fi franchise, Outer Wilds is a first-person space archaeology piece that I've seen dubbed as cozy cosmic horror. But what's so fascinating to me, and something that really brought me back to that Assassin's Creed 2 ending that opened this whole world up to me, is that both of these IPs, at one point in time, explored very similar philosophical questions. Do we keep trying to fix things? Or do we accept that things have to inevitably end so a new rebirth could come after it? I guess before exploring these themes within Assassin's Creed, it's probably worth getting into the franchise's history, because I do feel that this context plays a role in why it wasn't able to explore the themes it did in such depth, or frankly, why the franchise isn't even allowed to end. Assassin's Creed initially started off as a Prince of Persia spin-off, but quickly evolved into its own IP, using real history, as well as sci-fi elements to tell its story. Created by Patrice Desilets and Corey May, the games focus on a bartender named Desmond Miles, who explores his rich lineage through a machine called the Animus to uncover relics and messages left from the Isu, or as they were known on the franchise's prime, the ones who came before. As you dig into this franchise, you start to see that the solar flare already happened, and that the Isu had their efforts divided between fighting a war with the humans and working on various experiments to stop the flare. This includes certain satellites, towers, and space manipulation, though they all failed. So they attempted to find ways to preserve their records and their minds to maybe prevent it from happening again or delay it. Many of these ended in failure, but one, the Grand Temple, succeeded. The Grand Temple acted as both a museum for all their previous methods, and housed a machine that would delay the flare so long as it kept functioning. Desmond, in the end, was given a choice. Activate the machine, sacrificing his life and freeing a dangerous Isu while delaying the solar flare, or let the flare happen, and the few survivors can rebuild from scratch. It's important to note that initially, the Assassin's Creed franchise had a set ending, though that changed as Desilets was removed from Ubisoft and May stopped working on the franchise not too long after. Since Assassin's Creed is a AAA franchise, and since its original creative writers had been removed, Ubisoft decided to keep the franchise going. I truly believe that if Assassin's Creed ended as intended with Assassin's Creed 3, then the solar flare would have happened, and it would have been time to rebuild. It thematically fits everything Assassin's Creed was building and offered both hope and consequences. It also shows the importance of time and just how precious it is, something Assassin's Creed constantly made a point to mention through the Desmond saga. But, in all reality, Ubisoft chose to prevent the flare, and the Zombie Simpsons equivalent of Assassin's Creed was born. It had the same aesthetics, the same historic parkour sci-fi mix, but none of the philosophy or heart, no closure. So this is where I'm left with Assassin's Creed, a franchise that's lost its identity, that has no heart, and is now the equivalent of video game slop content. So I hope you understand why this might be a bit of a personal subject to me. So we're back to the core question. How did a cozy cosmic horror first-person sci-fi game close what a parkour historic fiction game opened? The Nomai, the ancient civilization in Outer Wilds, function very similarly to the Isu, albeit they're more casual and sympathetic, which fits the cozier tone of the game. The protagonist also explores these abandoned planets at first not quite sure what he's looking for, similar to how Desmond would explore his ancestors' memories with the same uncertainty. As you explore the solar system in the Outer Wilds, you think you're getting closer to finding the solution to the time loop and fixing it. You think you're approaching the end, but really, you're met with a quiet sadness as you sit on one of the many stations the Nomai built, realizing their failure and watching the sun explode, over and over again. The time loop resets, and you don't feel any better. You're a little more beat up, but you are wiser. You know what not to do, but you're also no closer to answers, and instead are asking more questions. I remember, as I played Assassin's Creed 3, the shared confusion amongst Desmond and his team as the end of the world was nearer, but you were no closer to finding answers. That's how I felt playing Outer Wilds. Then something happens. I find my way to the Ash Twins project and stop the loop by removing a core. I then get the hunch to take it to a lost vessel that's missing a core, and the time loop is done. I feel like I'm finally making progress. As I make my way through the foggy, frankly terrifying depths of Dark Bramble, I find the vessel and through it, enter the Eye of the Universe. When I'm there, I'm in this surreal landscape where I'm not sure if it's really happening or some psychedelic sequence, but you meet all your friends. They all harmonize the same song you've been hearing all game, and it happens. The universe ends. For a while there's nothingness, but 14 billion years later there's another Big Bang, and another universe is born. Going through all this, the ambiguity, the mystery, and the realization that none of what you're seeing might be real, and this might just be the protagonist's way of coping with actual, long-term, final cosmic death, was a moving experience. The universe ended, but life goes on. Life finds a way. To this day, I'm convinced that Assassin's Creed was supposed to end with a solar flare, and with life starting anew. And that ending is the exact kind of thematic closure a franchise grappling with legacy, the consequences of the past, and the failures of those who came before needed. An acknowledgement that the end is inevitable, and that through it, and that for life to occur, a new beginning needed to happen. The Nomai understood it, and that's why they moved on from trying to prevent the supernova and instead reset life through the Eye of the Universe. The Eye of the Universe was their grand temple, and instead of doing something like increasing the loop from 22 to 44 minutes, or using it as sequel bait, the game let itself end. It let itself find its finality, and through that, it gave room for something new. Maybe something that isn't bogged down by the mistakes of the past. Something that allows us to accept and move on, because sometimes it's the only way forward. Assassin's Creed felt like it was going there, but couldn't fully commit to it because at the end of the day, it's a corporate AAA franchise. And with that, the drive for profit and milking it for all that it has become the priority. That moment in Assassin's Creed 2, when Minerva goes through the stakes at hand and how dire they are, spoke to me. It introduced me to this idea of facing inevitable realities at what was a formative age. But as the franchise went on, it ran away from its own conclusion and buried its own legacy. Assassin's Creed had, in a way, become what it warned against. Then, 16 years later, after playing Outer Wilds, I finally got that narrative closure I needed from that moment I had as a teen. Outer Wilds let itself end. It accepts the weight of finality and invites the player to doing the same. It ultimately is a game about the importance of finality and the need to let go. That's why Outer Wilds gave me the closure Assassin's Creed never could. That's why it succeeds where Assassin's Creed failed, despite it being a very different game.